ICQ Podcast, episode 474, New Radio Shack editions. Well, hello and welcome, fellow Amateur Radio enthusiasts, to episode 474 of the ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast, supported this episode by our monthly and subscription donors. In this episode, we join Martin, MNMRB, Chris, Mike Zero, Tango Charlie Hotel, Frank, Kilo 4, Foxtrot Mike Hotel, and Leslie, Golf Zero Charlie India Bravo, to discuss the latest amateur radio news. Myself, Colin M6BLY, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature is New Radio Shack editions. Well, as always, we ask you to consider the value for value model, that if you enjoy the show and get value from it, that you support us. And we'd like to thank our monthly and subscription donors for, supporting our work in our show and keeping us advert free. If you enjoy the show and want to help out, you can do it in a very simple way. Go to icqpodcast.com/donate, and as I say, turn your value in whatever you enjoyed or you learned something into a monetary figure and send that our way, and we'll put that towards our running costs and keeping your show advert free for you, so please do consider us. Right, then we're going to join Martin, Chris, Frank and Leslie to discuss and generate thoughts about the latest amateur radio news, including making digital modes easier for blind operators and AMSAT promote climate change understanding. As always, hope you enjoy.
The ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast, serving the amateur ham radio community fortnightly since 2008.
Well, hi guys, and welcome to the News Roundtable for episode 474 of the ICQ Podcast. Tonight, there's a shorter team than normal, but with me tonight I have Mr. Chris Howard, M0TCH. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Martin. Hi, guys. Yes, feeling very short tonight, Martin, but hopefully I can do something about that later. But very good evening, and hello to the other guys as well.
Yeah, that's good. Also, we have over there in the States, Mr. Frank Howell, K4FMH. Hi, Frank.
Hey, Martin. Hey, everybody. I've got to confess, 474, I've got to get a new abacus to keep on counting.
Well, we were working out when number 500 is going to hit. And I think Chris seems to think it's early January next year.
Pretty much a year to go. Unless they do a special episode in between, it's pretty much going to be the first episode next year, I think. I think,
Chris, that Colin's got an idea for a special episode, but I'll tell you about that more later.
End of year party this year then? Wow, okay.
So we should have a party around about December. So that'll be a good one. And also back outside the pond is Mr. Leslie Butterfields, G0CIB. Hi, Leslie.
Good evening, Martin and all. It's freezing. It's freezing in Blighty here. We've had snow. We've had freezing weather. We've had sleet, which I fell over. But what else can I say? Over to you, Martin.
Yeah, well, I know it's we've had snow, and for us southern softies, as our northern friends call us. But in fairness, I was talking to Bill the other day, and he was saying there's like nearly a foot of snow where he is. So, I think we had a little bit of snow in the last 4 days, and it's literally brought the place to a stop on the day it happened. But there you go. Now, Mr. Bill Barnes, WC3B, unfortunately can't join us tonight. He's got to work, which is a shame. And Mr. Martin Ruffo, M0SGL, is not very well at the moment. He would be coughing and spluttering all the way through, which would give me a phenomenal editing job if he did join. But he was up for joining if we really needed him. But I said, you've got to get yourself sorted. That's more important. Right. Well, let's have a look at what we've got to talk about. So, it's, in fairness, easing the way for blind hams to use digital modes. So there's a bit of software being written. I think it's great that the thing is that we are looking after blind operators. And in fairness, getting them into some of the digital modes so they can do it, got to be a good thing. Chris, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I can do. I think amateur radio is a fantastic hobby. If you've got visual impairment, there's no reason why amateur radio couldn't be a really good hobby for you to get involved with. And so I used to work actually with a chap that was blind, and and I work in IT. He worked all day on a computer, worked perfectly well. He had various bits of kit to help him. He had a speech synthesizer, and had a braille display which you could feel what was on the screen, the words, and it all worked very well. And he could do it. He could operate a computer just as fast as I could. And it's great that people are adjusting software to help people with visual impairments to be able to use it. So this is fantastic, and I think it's to be applauded. That, like I say, amateur radio I think is a great hobby for that. That there shouldn't be any barrier to someone being able to do amateur radio just because they can't see very well. So I think this is a good one.
Yeah, and you and I know a visually impaired ham that lives about a mile from me, and he's probably saying, "It's me," when he hears me talk about him. It's me. But yeah, the guy is a very, very good ham. You would not know he is visually impaired, and he can hold a conversation on most things. He has struggled to do repairs on electronic equipment, but he just about can see. When I say just about, if it's more than about 9 inches from his nose, he can't. But it certainly doesn't stop him from amateur radio. So hopefully he doesn't mind me talking about it. So there you go. Now, Frank, what do you think about this?
Martin, this is a project that I think it's everything that Chris and you have said and more. I, too, have a friend, Mike Duke, K5XU. He's been a ham for 50 years. He's been blind since birth. He got involved with amateur radio at the Mississippi School for the Blind, which happens to be here in Jackson. He is a quintessential CW operator. And I've known Mike. He's been often on my portable ops team at times. And he has accommodated with many things involving CW as well as sideband. However, he has not gotten into digital modes, and it's my hope that this software will facilitate him getting into that. So I just think it's a wonderful contribution for what we commonly call the public good. And as Chris said, for the grace of God, there go I, but I can imagine that for blind hams who are maybe unable or more challenged to do some things, amateur radio can be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it certainly is, because it keeps people involved as well. And, somebody who has a visual impairment or other things, when you're talking on air, you're part of the group. Nobody else has to know your problem unless you want to tell them. And let's say our friend up the road, certainly wouldn't be obvious from his conversations on air. So, let's hope more software gets sorted out and we make the hobby far easier to do some of these other modes. Leslie, what do you think about this?
Well, if I'm speaking from a UK perspective, if you look back into the past, some of the attitudes of organisations was, to put it blunt, archaic to people with disabilities. Now, I think it's changed an awful lot with companies, service providers, especially on the railways, so very big on assisting people that were not able-bodied, and shops and that made sure the entrances they can get their wheelchair in and all this. And this is all about having an accommodation, and that's fine, absolutely fine. That's where we should be. We should be encouraging this. It's about getting people into the hobby, and if you can provide some equipment so they can enjoy what we do, I don't see nothing wrong with that at all, and it's all for the good. Over to you, Martin.
Yeah, well, I forgot about what the railway do. I spent 2 years doing customer assistance on the railway as a retirement job for me.
Yeah.
And I was one of those guys who was trained who could put a wheelchair ramp onto the side of a train or help people on and off, or whatever. So
One of the things they did, and I hope the company doesn't mind me speaking like this, because what they did is they got some of the managers and they blindfolded them, to simulate being blind. And it's like, well, where is the exit? How do I find the exit? How do I get there? When I get out, can I feel the start of all these? Can I feel the pavement with my feet, because they've got like knobbled pavements, so that a blind person could actually feel it with their foot. So that they spend a lot of time looking at this thing, and I think it's all good.
yeah, well, we're going off topic a little bit, but I remember when I was doing this, I was trained to put ramps on and off for wheelchair people. If we put somebody on the train, for argument's sake, I was sending somebody up to Victoria Station, what we do is sit them down in a seat, and then we go back into the station room. We phone Victoria Station and say, can you meet this person? They're in the third carriage, 3 seats from the back. And we just say to the person, stay in your seat until our colleague collects you. And, a lot of people won't be aware of this sort of service going on, but why shouldn't it? And,
well, why should they be excluded from this great hobby?
Yeah. So anything like that, I think is a good thing.
Martin, let me add, because I think I succumb to the tone in my comments that the software is developed. It is not. This is really a call for assistance. So the Ham doing this, Daryl, NU7I, at the blindaccessjournal.com is welcoming people. And, we have so many software developers and programmers and things. So let me kind of emphasize that from the ICQ podcast team, that this is a call for assistance. It's not that it's a done deal. I would hope that the ARDC would consider putting some money into this, but that's something that Daryl would have to reach out to them for. But let me just
as we're finding the combinations of the wallet,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important, and improving things all the way down the line is great. So let's make this hobby more inclusive and less exclusive, and that's one way to do it.
Absolutely.
Move to our next news story. AMSAT Youth Initiative takes a closer look at climate change. Now, Frank, I'm going to let you go first on this one. What do you think?
Well, AMSAT is a satellite organization, has a U.S. group as well as one in the U.K. And gosh, pardon my ignorance, they may have some other chapters as well. I'm a life member, as it turns out, of AMSAT here in the U.S., and I will read their journal and things. And they have some focused activities. This is one, as we have begun to really focus on reaching out to young people. The AMSAT Youth Initiative, they're looking for topics to try to get young people involved. And you think about it, one of the strategies is not just hit them over the head with a mallet, amateur radio, but to try to link amateur radio to things they may already be interested in. Because it doesn't, I'm preaching to the choir here on the podcast. We already know all or many of these other things that amateur radio is already linked into, drones and other things. But very often young people don't realize it. And so this is going to focus on climate change and how satellites are related to that. Now, in my professional career back in the late 90s, I was a badged official for NASA at the Stennis Space Center. That was their lead commercial remote sensing center. And I coordinated a very large, well-funded program to try to commercialize satellite imagery. That is, NASA would move from being the biggest customer for commercial companies that produce satellite imagery, whereas before they were the largest producer. So the climate change piece was one of the first ones that I could try to encourage companies to send in startup proposals for us to fund their initial R&D on climate change. Now that's, 30 years ago almost here. It's 2026. And so you look at the role that satellites have played in climate change and looking at change, time one, time two, look at the difference in pixelations or pixels there, and the change in pixels is the basic model for change in remote sensing. So this is the approach they're taking, and a retired educator into XSE in New Jersey is taking the lead on that. And I'll let the other presenters pick up on it, but I think it's a gem of an idea. It's a very sound approach, and there's just a whole lot of shaking going on, to quote an old rock and roll song by Jerry Lee Lewis, in this topic.
Certainly is, Frank. And yeah, it's an interesting one. And once again, as you say, involving youth. Chris, what's your thoughts?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? So this has been funded. They got some money out of the ARDC for this one actually as well, interestingly. So I think it's a good way to spread the word. These are free courses that have been produced, involving AMSAT, and if it helps to educate people about what's happening, it's educate people about satellites and how they can help us here on Earth. Then I guess it's a second of. I think it's the second or possibly third. I'm looking at the website now. Actually, it might be the third video that's been. Oh no, sorry, the next one's coming out. So this month, satellites and pollution control, the next course. But I think it's a good way of educating people, and if it helps people to also learn a little bit about satellites as well and how they help us here on Earth, then that's great. So that's it from me on that one, Martin.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting, and this climate control. In fairness, well, right, I'm an old boy, but 50-odd years ago, I remember snow nearly every winter. It's very rare occasions. In fact, I'm going to pass it to Leslie in a minute, but, us southerners in the south of England are referred to as southern softies by our northern brethren, and we actually had some snow, didn't we, Leslie?
Yes, we did, Martin.
And... do you think this is a good thing? Trying to work out what's happening to the environment?
I think it's fundamentally important. I do know governments, how can I put this? They provide funding for this type of project. And if you want to look at the importance of it, go back to when lead was put into petrol. And you say, well, what's that all about it? Well, somebody looked at it and something was messing with their results. And it was found through studies into the environment that this was due to lead coming from vehicles. And they said, well, it's just a recent event. So they started the snow, the snow things. They did, what do they call them? The snow samples. And they could prove that there was lead in the air, and it was quite significant, and it was affecting young children especially. So studying environment and the effects on human beings I think is fundamentally important. As far as the course is concerned, well, this is just a start to get youngsters interested. Like I said, you don't know where these studies are going to end up and what we're going to find, and that's the whole purpose of them. Over to you, Martin.
Yeah. Well, wonderful thing is knowledge. Knowledge, you can't take it away from you. I suppose in my lifetime I've gone through a lot of these things, lead in petrol, and I was talking to somebody the other day about EHT on colour TVs, and if the CRT ones, and if the top cap final anode was about 25,000 volts, but if it went up to 27, you got X-rays out the front of the tube. Now, all these sort of things, there for the grace of God go I. How much longer I've got, I don't know, but I've lived through some of these real...
The trouble is, Martin, we invent something, or we put something onto the market, and it's only 20 years down the line, we find out, oh, well, we shouldn't have done that because CFCs or refrigerant gases and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's important to keep our finger on the pulse.
Yeah, certainly is. But we can't...
Well, Martin, one little one little add in here as you guys are talking about these innovative things. About the same time that I was doing this work with NASA, we had these huge commercial hog farms where you'd have 30,000 head of pigs. And where did their pig poop go? Their effluent.
Nitrogen.
To use the nice term, where'd their effluent go?
Yes.
Well, it went into a big lagoon. And if you had people living not too far away, a mile away, 2 miles away, when the micrometeorology of which way the wind blows, all of the smell went with it. And some of the ingredients in the smell from that would take people that had bronchitis and things like that and really put them into a tailspin. The problem is the wind doesn't blow the same way all the time, right? So officials go out and they go, well, I don't smell it. They leave. A couple hours later, boom, you'd smell it. So I was put in charge of our state legislature's scientific research team on this problem. One of the things that we tried to do was with imagery, we had to use planes, which was more expensive. Can you get a signature from pictures of methane? How much methane is coming off of that lagoon? And we were able to do that. It was not cost effective, but we were able to do it. That's just, I'll just throw that in because there's so many ways that we can use technology to solve problem, but you kind of got to let scientists play and fail some before they get the right answer.
So, yeah, I agree. There's lots of things that have happened in the last 50, 60 years. I'm sure that global warming and climate change are actually happening. It does seem that we don't get as bad winters as normal and things like that.
Martin, just a final word on this. So just for people know about how to get access to this. So these free courses that have been produced, if you go to BuzzSat, which is Bravo Uniform Zulu Zulu S, so Sierra Alpha Tango.com, there are links there to these 2 current courses, and it looks like there's a third one on the way as well. So there's one that talks about an introduction to satellite meteorology, and the second course is satellites and climate change, and there's a third course which looks like it's coming shortly, which is satellites and pollution control. And from what I can see, you just click on the link and away you go. I don't think you even have to register or anything. So it's good stuff. If you can learn about some of those things for free, why not?
Yeah, I think it's good stuff, but I don't want you to all think that we're the arbiters of doom. These things happen. We've added a little bit extra that wasn't in the news story, but based on technology and understanding that we have. So,
Martin, there's a singer over from your neck of the woods that said it best. Don't shoot me. I'm only the piano player.
There you go. There you go. Don't shoot the piano player. Okay, let's move to the next news story, which I think is just a bit of fun, really. I don't know how much we're going to discuss this, but New Zealand hams can use the prefix ZM, Zulu Mike, for the Centenary year. So starting this year, you may actually hear some ZMs instead of ZLs online. Leslie, do you want to go first on this one?
It's a bit of fun, and I don't blame him. It's in Centennial year. Why not? We all like working different prefix, don't we? Don't we, Martin? It's all part of the game.
Yeah, it certainly is, and should be a bit of fun. And yeah, I'm sure Edmund will be trying to work them. In fairness, we do get some ZLs come up on our talk group, so maybe 1 or 2 of them will come up as ZMs, which would be nice. Frank, what's your thoughts on this one?
I agree with Leslie. It's kind of a fun thing, and it's a way of the New Zealanders to honor their sort of heritage and their history, if you will, for amateur radio. Many in the U.S. tend to look at Australia and New Zealand, that's just one blob down there. But if you want to pick a fight in a bar, you tell a Kiwi, oh, that's Australia, isn't it? And you'll certainly throw a hand grenade, a cat among the pigeons. So let's all get that straight, okay?
Oh yeah, yeah. It'll be no. People get very protective, and yeah, I've had some lovely conversations with New Zealanders and Australians in the mornings, sometimes over here when they come on. So that's good news. Chris, what's your thoughts about ZM call signs?
Yeah, it's like you say, it's a bit of fun. We've done similar things here in the UK before. I know for the Queen's, is it the Silver Jubilee? We could actually change our call signs and put a Q in our call sign. So I would have been MQ0TCH. In fact, I'm just looking at it now. Actually, or they also allowed us to put a /70 for 70 years after our call sign. So yeah, it's a bit of fun. It's just recognising a particular event, isn't it? So yeah, why not? If we hear some more trouble, well, I doubt if I'll be able to get any from here, but you never know. Manage to work any stations from there, I will give them a call. Absolutely.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, it's a bit of fun. Us hams enjoy doing things in history and celebrating things with special events. So bit of fun, guys. We'll look out for hearing from you ZMs soon. Okay, next news story. And we've covered a lot about satellites and one thing and another, and it worries me that you guys might start thinking that we've talked too much about satellites, but this did come up as an interesting story that got to me. Starlink is lowering, you heard correctly, lowering thousands of satellite orbits to reduce the risk of collision. Frank, do you want to go first on this one?
Sure. Well, in defense of satellites as a topic, many would argue that working satellites among amateur radio operators is probably second only to POTA activity as far as new things where people are jumping into it. And so it's important for us to understand the world of satellites, and as other satellites do different things, it can affect HamSCI. So let's kind of go into it there. You know, Starlink has an orbit that's about 342 miles. They're going to drop or lower about 50 miles to just under 300. They have about 4,400 satellites that they're going to lower. Well, why is that? Well, that zone is becoming a little bit about like the Autobahn, I would imagine. Lots of traffic there, and you can see them at night. There's this cool graphic that's out there on the internet that you can look and sort of track all of the Starlink satellites there. There's a public good for it. We've got some much better remote access internet and things like that. I've got a good friend, Mike N5 Delta Uniform, that lives southwest of Jackson. He's in a metropolitan area, but in a very rural setting, and he can't get decent broadband. He's using Starlink, and he gets about 200 megs on a good day. And so it does have a very, very good payoff for some consumers. Now, they're dropping them to keep accidents from having collisions. And this is important for a couple of reasons. Geomagnetic storms and the sunspot cycle also has what influences the drag, i.e. the basic decay time for satellites. So there are those things that satellite operators have to keep in mind. In working with our friend, Dr. Scott McIntosh of Linker Space, he's certainly a consultant, and his company works with satellite owners and that sort of thing on these issues, how to predict, for example, the solar flux index by monitoring F10.7 and what's the more accurate forecast for that, because quite frankly, NASA's has been terrible. And Scott, as he and I published a study, his SFI forecast was considerably better. So that's a general problem that satellite owners and operators have to think about. But I'll leave it for the other presenters maybe to pick up on that. We've got a traffic problem.
We certainly do, Frank. We certainly do. Chris, what's your thoughts on this one?
I hadn't realised there were 9,000 satellites, 9,000 Starlink satellites up there, which is a phenomenal number. And of course, that's amongst many thousands of other things that are up there as well. So absolutely, there is a risk of these things colliding, and I'm sure it just happened from time to time, although there is coordination between the various people that put those things up there to try and keep them apart. And, I don't know how on earth it works, but it must be very, very clever and involve maths and clever stuff. I don't know how they do this, though. I don't know how, these are tiny little CubeSats, aren't they? Or tiny little things that are not, they haven't got rockets attached or anything, have they? I don't quite know how. I'm just curious to know how they're actually going to reduce the orbit. It's obviously going to involve some clever technology that I'm not aware of. It just says, they're lowering. It says the shell lowering. This is a post on X, or it used to be called Twitter, from Michael Nichols, who I believe must work for Starlink. He's talked about, or possibly SpaceX, possibly, all, I guess, linked together under Elon Musk's companies. He talks about, the shell lowering is being tightly coordinated with other operators, regulators, and US Spacecom. But I'm just interested to know actually how it works, because I don't quite know how they control. I think once it's up there, I just assumed it was going around the Earth and that was it.
Chris, let me add, AI is coming to rescue along with Superman.
Okay, brilliant. Okay.
They have ion thrusters on board. It's powered by Krypton.
Well, they do have, so they have got thrusters on board. Okay, well, I guess that would explain.
Anyway, but I thought they were using connection to Superman through Krypton. But carry on.
Had this vision of Superman. Do you remember when he made the Earth spin backwards to make time go backwards? That was interesting. I don't think that was real. Just another thing that in this tweet that he put out there saying, of the 9,000 satellites, they've only ever had 2 that have died, so they are extremely reliable, but I guess they don't want them to fail up there, and they certainly don't want them to be crashing into other things, particularly, I guess, any kind of human involved spacecraft. You definitely don't want to have a satellite of whatever size, crashing into one of those. So it sounds like they're doing this for the right reason. It's all about safety, I suppose. So,
Chris, there's also a scientist at NASA whose name is Kessler, or Kessler effect, Donald Kessler, who's kind of come up with the scenario that if 2 crash into one another, they have all these bits that come out, and there will be a cascade of collisions. So it's called collisional cascading. And it's a little bit of a doomsday thing, but I think behind the scenes that Starlink may have gotten the memo that, hey, we need to do things to prevent this. So
they might have been told. They might have been told, you got to sort this out, guys, before something catastrophic happens. Like, it makes sense, because I guess in that environment where you've not got a lot of gravity, if any at all, any tiny fragments of a crash are going to potentially go out, flow out into space at high speed over a huge distance and could cause untold damage, I suppose. So, it could be.
And you remember, I don't know, I'm going to say 10 years just for the sake of discussion. China intentionally blew up a satellite.
Oh, okay.
And all those bits and pieces wreaked havoc. And I don't know that it hit the ISS or anything, but all those bits, certainly the ISS has been hit, and some others have been hit. So, anyway, just a thought there.
Well, I think wasn't there a film where something happened similar to that? Was it Gravity? I can't remember now, but absolutely. But I guess science fiction is becoming science fact, isn't it? Very quickly. So anyway, I'll pass over to Leslie to get his thoughts on this one.
Well, I'm not a satellite person. I'm a HF person, so I'm a bit of a dinosaur in this respect, and I do think that it's been covered by Chris and Frank very well indeed. So I'm going to pass on this one and pass it back to Martin.
Yeah, no problem, says Ian. I knew you weren't a satellite person, and But these satellites, if they're orbiting the Earth, well, the ISS is travelling in excess of 1,700 miles an hour. So
I think it's 17,000 actually.
Sorry. I suddenly realised I probably got it wrong. 17,000 miles an hour. So these other satellites could be doing the similar sort of speeds, and
it's mass velocity squared, if I remember rightly.
Yeah. Well, if you get a collision, the things are going to go everywhere. Interestingly, but yep, as I say, at least Starlink are doing something about it. It's interesting, and we'll see what happens. Right, going to move to our next news story. And this one isn't really an amateur radio news story, but it was kind of, for us people in the UK, just interesting. And I'm going to pass it to Chris first, but broadcaster marks historic radio site for 100 years. Now, they're talking about the main transmitter that was running at Rugby, and I believe the BBC had a lot of control over this one. And yeah, as you say, we used to be able to go up the M1 and see the massive antenna farm for it, but that's long since gone. But they did a little event on this one, didn't they, Chris?
Yeah, interesting. So you're absolutely right. I do remember driving up the M1 motorway here in the UK. For those that are not UK based, big motorway goes right up the country, or certainly right up the middle of England, essentially. And yeah, there was a huge estate of huge towers with kind of, I guess, fairly low frequency operations, because it was huge. I'm guessing it was all part of perhaps one big aerial array. But I always thought that was to do with submarine communications, but maybe I'm wrong. I thought it was the VLS station for submarines, but maybe it's used for a number of things. These does talk about 57 transmitters over a 1,600 acre area, but that closed back in 2002, according to this news story. So, but certainly, 1926, 100 years, that's how long radio's been, or more now, isn't it? A lot of the national societies are now over 100 years old. So our hobby is, think how far we've come then 100 years, but the principles of radios are still the same. So yeah, it's great that these guys are commemorating 100 years, and it's good to get that, good to think about history and looking back and how things have worked. But it's great. And this is the Rugby Amateur Transmitting Society Rats. We're doing this back on New Year's Day. So yeah, great to commemorate something like this.
Yeah, it's always great to commemorate and remember what happened. Leslie, do you ever remember this? And I'd heard stories about Rugby being transmitted to submarines on very low frequencies. Also, the time signal used to come out of Rugby, didn't it?
Yeah, I was looking at the article, and it does say exactly that signals maritime and submarine communications and played key roles in World War II. It's good to commemorate it. It's good to keep the history alive. I think we drove past it once, and the old radio went a bit nuts at the time. Not quite sure what it would do to all these modern cars if it was still around, but there you go. It's a good thing. Commemorate the past. Over to you, Martin.
Yeah, as I say, great fun. Now, Frank, I know it's a UK story, and in fairness, the antenna site would have probably been about 2 miles long, 1.5, 2 miles long, right next to the motorway, and just before, in the middle of our country, and you could actually see all the antennas on there, and it was a phenomenal sight to see. But as I say, I don't know if it's of any interest to yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And I find the history was just mentioned by Chris and Leslie. 100 years, you accumulate quite a bit of history. I love seeing the pictures of the early radio sites. I happen to have a tilted terminated dipole in my attic. And, it's an old design long years ago. It's very, very broadband, but it's very quiet, and which is why I have it. And it's my go-to antenna when I'm testing or if things are very noisy, particularly on 80 meters or 75 meters. The point being is seeing a lot of those old pictures, those ancient pictures, I think are just the romantic period of radio. When I look at the description of 57 transmitters in an area of 1,600 acres. That's incredible. What an incredible site. And so I'm glad that there's a commemoration of this. Sorry I'm not over in the UK to visit this, perhaps one day, but I just think it's a great celebration. I think we need to do more of that up to a limit. We need to remember our history. And this is certainly one in the UK, I think.
Yeah, certainly is. And unfortunately, Frank, if you drive up the M1 now, you wouldn't know it had been there because they've totally taken it all. It's all gone. So never mind. But what you're saying about looking at the pictures, we'll put the web link to the article I found, and that's got lots of pictures of the actual site and the transmitters and one thing and another. So interesting one. Right, we're going to move to our last news story. I'm going to get Frank to go first on this one because we've kind of half covered this and now it's starting to rear its ugly head. But the FCC reminds experimental HF stations to identify themselves in radio world. Now, you can't just have HF stations going here, there, and everywhere and not identifying, can you, Frank?
No, you can't. That's part of our basic rules. If we spring from the day of the celebration in the UK, the early years, we had plenty of room to run, so to speak, in the RF spectrum, and we don't now. And that's why this is important. For listeners of the podcast who go back a bit, we've talked a bit about this when those experimental licenses were first proposed and the negotiation was going on. It first came out, well, hey, we want to create a new set of shortwave stations and we're going to play music, but on one of the sub channels, we're going to have data. And all that sounded cool. Hey, here's a resurgence here in commercial shortwave broadcasting. Well, that little cover story didn't last long when the engineers began to look at it, and the proposers finally came clean. Yeah, we want to broadcast data. And very often our clients will be traders on the stock market because getting to the market to buy and sell, even if it's a microsecond, can mean lots of money. So, okay, then it came clean. So they got their experimental license. Many hams said, oh, it's 14 megahertz. 14 to 15 approximately with some of the licenses. Hey, that's the 20 meter band in the lower part of that. Oh, but we won't interfere and we'll follow all the rules. We promise. And so they got their experimental license. Now, since that time, the station licensed WK2XJK, licensed to Rockland Wireless LLC in Chicago. They've been apprised of the non-interference criterion, and people have complained about their interfering, particularly in the ham radio band. That was number one. Well, what if you hear a signal that doesn't ID itself? Who transmitted it? The rank and file listener has no capability of figuring out who it is. That's why we have station identifications, right? They have not been identifying. And I guess their strategy was to go, oop, we forgot, we'll start doing that. So I'm being a little bit flippant here, but Nick Langan's article in Radio World, the leading trade magazine for that, is spot on. And he's covering this. He's a great reporter in this realm. So we told you it was probably going to happen. They said, oh, no, it won't. Well, there you have it.
Yeah, you certainly do. And I mean, Leslie's probably the most worried because he's an HF person. But if they just decide to come down into our amateur bands and you've got umpteen kilowatts being transmitted, he could really screw the 20 meter band up, couldn't you, Leslie?
800 kilowatts to be exact.
800 kilowatts. There you go. What do you think, Leslie?
The answer to your question is yes, but it doesn't actually officially exist. Now, I know people are going to interference on our chip end. It doesn't exist. Now, I can hear radio amateurs jumping up and down there and saying, no, you're totally wrong. Look at my radio. There's the interference. No. What you need to look at is the number of complaints that go into Ofcom. And there's actually a handful every year. And the question they got to ask themselves, is it worth diverting resources to a problem in their eyes, and according to the evidence, is minimal? that's the problem you have. Should stations identify themselves? Yes, absolutely. Because we get problems occur, and if we've got a phone call saying, Leslie, your transmission's causing a problem, can you please do something about it? Yes, of course, not a problem. So that's where I am on this. Yes, they should. I know people will say that the regulations in the UK have been eased quite considerably from what they were, and that's true. But that's not to say you shouldn't identify yourself. That there are sort of guidelines on that, and I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of it. But you should identify yourself. So if there is a problem, they can say, "Oh yeah, Leslie's causing a problem. We're going to have a chat with him." And this is what happens. And I can just imagine some manager saying, "No, we don't need to do that." Well, that happens in industry. Not casting aspersions on any particular company, but that does happen, and they have to be, should we say, gently reminded now and again. So over to you, Martin.
Yeah. Well, I think you raise a good point over, the authorities won't do anything if we don't bother to inform them of the interference that's being created. So, yeah, as far as they're concerned, there is no interference because nobody's complained. Everybody thinks it's somebody else's problem. And that's a subject, don't get me started on high. But Chris, what do you think?
I just have.
Nothing much more to add from me, Martin. I think the guys have said it all. Sounds like give them an inch, they'll take a mile type scenario, but there you go.
Yeah, now you got to take an inch and a mile to get back on even standards. Yep, understood, mate, understood. Right, that concludes our news stories for today. Let's find out what the guys have been up to since the last time we were on the podcast. Frank, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll be happy to go first, Martin. I've been focusing a good bit on writing. I have a couple of antennas, one on the Delta V Auto Loop in the current issue of Practical Wireless, and next month it should have my random copper stick antenna. So if you like portable operating on HF, let me encourage you to read Practical Wireless. It's a fine publication in my eye, and Don Field is a superb editor. So I've been focusing on writing. The second thing is been studying the Parks on the Air program. There have been some concern about why aren't local parks included. There are various reasons, but nothing specific given by the POTA admin. And so several of us who meet on Saturday morning in what we call the Cycle 25 Zoom group, we've been discussing this. So I thought, this is a good opportunity for me to study the POTA sites. Where are they? Where are hams? Where are local parks? What's the spatial arrangement? And it kind of goes back to my professional toolkit. So I've been focusing on that. By the time this podcast drops, I may well have published my study on my blog at k4fmh.com. I do think it will show how urban hams are shortchanged in terms of the access they have to official parks on the air. And since POTA itself says it's just not going to happen, there may be an opportunity for a new program to be hosted online that facilitates local parks. And it could well be a tremendous growth opportunity for technician licensees to operate simplex. So I've been trying to finish up with that one. Doing a couple of other little things in terms of equipment. The popular ham Sean Flynn, W9FFF, now called Dude Tested, catchy YouTube name. He's had a couple of YouTube videos about an interesting device. The popular music service Spotify came out with a piece of hardware. If your car didn't have Spotify in its media system, buy their device and mount it, and it was called the Car Thing. Well, they later pulled the plug on them, and so a lot of vendors have new in-stock devices, has knobs and soft buttons and things like that. Nothing to do with them. When it got updated from Spotify, it killed it. Well, some enterprising computer hacker types built a new firmware to change the car thing into the desk thing. And then it had a programming API and you could do stuff with it. Enter Sean, W9FFF. He's taken it and created a control device for flex radios, as well as radios that use theta, such as the Hermes Light 2. I have a Flex and a Hermes Light 2. So just today before recording here, I had a new in-box car thing delivered, and I will at some point in the near future make the firmware updates and use one of the little sets of commands that Sean has created, and we'll put it to work. I've encouraged Sean to look at Power SDR, that KE9NS, I believe is his call sign, keeps updating for the Flex 1500 and the older versions. Now, Sean doesn't have one, so he's got to locate one to use it with. Some operators use the Flex 1500 with an amp on portable ops, and that would be just a killer device to be able to control it from that small little device. So tinkering with some of that. I also ran across another ham, this one in Italy, who has a small company, kind of a one-person company called HamSCI. And what he does is, his name is Alessandro, and his call sign is LU2IBU. And he's created an add-on to the very popular Bose noise-canceling headsets. I had one, and it'd been in the drawer for a while, but he's come up with a plug-in device that includes a couple of different mics. You can get a dynamic mic, an electric mic. You can get a mic that's tuned for DX punch, that is, takes out the bass, one that gives you a broader one. So I went with the little DX bass, and it will be delivered on Monday. I took out my Bose headphones, and they promptly fell apart. Had them for a number of years. So I got online. Bose has a nice refurbished pair, look almost like new, for a very cheap price. So they came in a couple of days ago. So I'll put together a new headset. You can control with a Bluetooth app the EQ for the Bose Quiet Comfort. So they are very comfortable, I will say that. So I've been tinkering with that, maybe for some portable and stuff in the shack with that. A couple of other bits and pieces there. Got another antenna ground plane that, now that the weather is not freezing as it has been, I'll go out and try to finish that, and I'll get that off to done. So some writing and tinkering, Martin, and trying to stay out of trouble.
Well, sounds like you've been very, very busy, Frank, and you managed to stay out of trouble, unlike me. I'm always in trouble one way or another. But sounds like you had some great fun, and I know you was away at Christmas and enjoyed yourself, so that was good too. And you were on the talk group.
Martin, I'll add a PS.
Go on.
I also purchased from OpenSpot the M1KE device. It's an all-in-one device. You don't need a radio, whether it's a real radio or not. Some people can go have a pint and argue it out. But if you're traveling and you're involved with, say, our talk group or All-Star Echolink, all you need is that device. And walking on the beach, I believe it was Christmas Day, Christmas morning, I had a lovely chat with Chris Howard, and that was kind of made it all worth it there. But I did purchase one of those, and I'm enjoying it very much. Chris, do you remember that?
I do indeed. In fact, I would have thought you'd almost finished talking. I was going to remind you about that. So I'm glad it came back to you there. Yes, it was very good stuff. Yeah.
Well, as Hugh Grant said, Martin, there you have it.
Where I do have it, there you go. Leslie, what have you been up to since the last time we spoke?
I've still been working on that little 49er, a little project I got before Christmas. It's a little CW transceiver. So that's what I've been working on. It's taken me longer than expected, but I'm not too worried. I had other things interfere with it. That doesn't matter. We can say other, things that cropped up. So The other thing I've been doing, I got a CW 3 watt transceiver, which I bought off eBay. I'm still playing with that, so I'll let you know how that goes. And doing my annual going through all my kits, because I'm one of these people for lists and making sure that everything's all right and seeing what needs to be dumped. So I started that as well, and just going through everything and chucking what needs to be chucked. So I don't like to accumulate too much stuff. But no, that's what I've been doing, Martin. And I'm sure it will take me a couple of months yet. So over to you.
Yeah. Well, you've at least been playing with a couple of little transmitters, which is fun. And I can understand that. Chris, I know you was away for part of the Christmas holiday, if not most of it. But as I say, you took your DMR with you, and certainly worked Frank on the talk group and myself, and I worked Frank as well. So
you did, and I did. Yeah, so I actually got to use my MI0 TCH call sign as I was in Northern Ireland over Christmas in my camper van. Thankfully, it wasn't quite as cold as it is currently here in the UK, although we did have a heater in there, so it wasn't too bad. But yeah, it was a pleasant trip. We did go all over Northern Ireland and visited various places over there. And like you said, I did take with me my Anytone DMR handheld and my OpenSpot 3 hotspot. So I was able to talk through the talk group. And yes, I spoke to Frank and I spoke to you, Martin, and I think I spoke to somebody else as well. I forget now. But yeah, it was good to do that while on the move. And in fact, Frank, while I was talking to you on Christmas Day, I was actually at the Titanic the Titanic Hotel, which is in Belfast, and it's been converted into a hotel now. It used to be the Harland and Wolff drawing office, and it's actually where they made the plans for HMS Belfast, for example, and the Titanic. So it was a great place to visit. It's now a very nice hotel, and just outside the window there is the slipway where they actually built the Titanic, and alongside it they built Olympic. So lots of history in that area. We also visited the museum there, which was very, very interesting and very well worth a visit if you're ever in Belfast. If you're interested in things that happened around that sort of time, the shipbuilding area there, and of course Titanic. There's a very interesting museum you can go and visit with lots and lots of very interesting things to look at. You can spend probably a whole day in there and see all that stuff in there, which is great. So yes, that was Belfast. Interestingly, if you do go to that museum, have a look outside and you'll see there are benches because the museum's quite an interesting shape. I couldn't really describe it. It's like 4 ships' bows sticking out the building essentially around it. And around the outside of the museum, there's a bunch of benches that go around the outside. And if you look at the way they're arranged, they actually spell out Morse code. I won't spoil it, but if you do go to the museum, have a look at the benches and try and figure out what it's saying in Morse. There's lots of little things like that you don't spot unless you're sort of looking out for them. So that was interesting. Other than that, for Christmas I got a QMX Plus kit. And I'm waiting though. There's a certain Mr. Martin Butler going to do a talk at the Radio Club in a couple of weeks. In fact, I think it's actually next week about building of the QMX Plus the QMX Plus kit. So I look forward to that, Martin, giving your experience of how that went, and I'm sure that will be very useful when I come to start building mine. What else? Oh, I received from AliExpress a UV5R Mini, a Baofeng handheld. Now, I have many Chinese handheld radios amongst other handheld radios, but this one looked quite interesting. There's been lots of talk about it on the internet, lots of talk about it on YouTube. Lots of folks have done videos and blog posts and that thing about this little radio. So I thought I'd get one. It was less than £20. And I know I brought up to the club on Monday night. You had a quick look at it. It's quite interesting. The bit that I didn't show you was the fact you can program it via Bluetooth. And in fact, there's actually an app you can download from, in my case, it was Android, the Google Play Store, and there's also an app, I believe, in the Apple App Store as well. So like an officially tested app by those, rather than just one you got to download and hope for the best. And works pretty well. So I'm quite pleased. We put it onto the test meter, and it does. It is a bit smaller than the original UV5R. It's got a colour screen. Nothing at all really like the original UV5R apart from the name. Programming it is actually, even on the radio itself, is actually pretty straightforward. It's got a very logical and well laid out menu system, and it's got, say, a colour screen, etc. So I've been playing with that a little bit. Didn't need another radio, but it's a little small thing. It fits in the bag quite well, so I thought I'd get one of those. Oh, and one final thing. I did get an email from Ben Lloyd, who's one of the RSGB directors, just to let me know that. And Ben's call sign is GW4BML. Ben's been involved in quite a few things. A big thing he gets involved with is SOTA, and he's written a book about that, about his hiking and things on mountains and that sort of thing, and the fact he's been doing SOTA. So, if that's of interest, I've not read the book myself, so I can't really review it. But it's available on Amazon, and the book's called Summit of Dreams. I just thought I'd mention that as well. So, Martin, that's about it for me, really.
Yeah, well, that sounds fun. And yeah, Ben Lloyd wrote to both of us. I must admit, I'm not going any further than what you said, but it did look an interesting topic. Your little Baofeng, I would suggest it is an ideal radio for people with small hands. So if you've got youngsters or whatever, and now you can let people operate under supervision, a younger person with a smaller hand will probably find it very, very attractive and comfortable in their hand. And it looked quite an interesting radio. But as I said to Chris on Monday night, I don't need another handy-talkie, so probably won't be getting one unless one arrives with Mrs. B gets me one that I don't know about at some point in time, but unlikely, I would suggest. Right. Well, I've got a bit of a strange one from what I've been up to, because a lot of what I've been up to has been covered in the feature. So I don't want to spoil you listening to the feature, but yeah, I've got some new devices and a couple of little tips which have gone quite nicely into the repeater. I sound like a broken record, but I tend to operate a reasonable amount on 2 meter mobile round where I live and our local repeater. Also, I have been on the talk group a few times and had a few interesting conversations with people. I was looking the other day and I thought, do you know what? I got given a little power supply, a little 12-volt power supply, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do with it? It's only 200 milliwatts, and I thought, 200 milliamps, and I thought, what am I going to do with that? Nothing uses that. And then I remembered I had a digital SDR power meter that I made from a kit many, many, many moons ago. And I thought, I haven't seen that. And I wonder where it is. Anyway, eventually found it in one of the boxes. And it turns out it only needs about 28 milliamps. So this little power supply that's literally a throwaway, because nobody would say, what's the use of a 200 milliamp power supply, runs that meter absolutely terrific. So I was pleased with that.
You could use it for a whisper station.
I could very well. I've got another one as well, so might do that as well, Leslie. Right, going forward, this Saturday, before the podcast gets released, I'm doing my, I think it's the 4th attempt now at trying to fix things at the repair cafe. So I'll be along on Saturday morning repairing bits and pieces. Next week, I'm flying to Ireland without Mrs. B, because, in fairness, it's just an in and out for a couple of days to do some DIY for Colin, and so I'm doing dad DIY. So I thought it was pretty pointless dragging Mrs. B out there for a couple of days and then back again. But over the next couple of weeks, as Chris has said, I have a talk to do for Sutton and Cheam Club, which is on my QMX Plus and how to build it and what you should expect from it. And I'm also doing a talk for a club in Barnstable before the next podcast. So I've got 2 club talks to do, and I'm doing my practical fault finding talk for the club in Barnstable. So we're going to be busy going forward, and basically a lot of what I've done is in the feature. So there you go. I think that's a fair statement. So I think we've all been very, very busy. All that's left for me to do now is to thank the guys, and we'll move on to the next part of the podcast. I'd like to thank Mr. Chris Howard, M0TCH.
Cheers, Martin. Cheers, guys.
No problem. I'd like to thank Mr. Frank Howell, K4FM8.
Thank you, Martin, and great visiting with all of you again today.
Yeah, great to have you as always. And last but not least, Leslie, we did invite you back. Mr. Leslie Butterfield's G0CIB.
Thanks for having me on, Martin.
No problems, mate. All right, then. 73, guys, and we'll move to the next part of the podcast. 73.
73.
73.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.ICQPodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.ICQPodcast.com.
Now it's time to have a look at the news in brief from me, Colin, M6BLY. We start with news here that in 2026 the ARRL will be celebrating the year of the club, and it's all about basically recognising the role of radio clubs and what they do to enhance the hobby. So there's going to be a couple of contests are going to kick off the celebration, and there's also a new clubs online section of the ARRL website as well to help say that promotion along with other benefits that will be going on throughout the year. So we'll pop a link to this on the ICQ podcast webpage for you, and you can see how maybe you can get your club involved in this ARRL initiative to promote, say, radio clubs in America in 2026. HamSCI Speaker Series is being announced for 2026, and the first of these will be a series by Dr. Barry Johnson, Whiskey 4 Whiskey Bravo, and he'll be speaking on a paper he co-authored with Gene Marcus, Whiskey 3 Papa Mike, entitled A Modest Study of Whisper 2 Spectral Width. And the topic arose from a question posed originally by HamSCI scientist Gwyn Griffiths, G3 Zulu India Lima, which asked the question, what is the minimal obtainable spectral width of a Whisper 2 signal? The presentation will take place in January over Zoom, and there'll also be a published recording of this as well. So we'll put a link on this for you, and so you can check out that talk. And the first Desecheo Island activation since 2009 will be taking place very, very soon. So Desecheo Island is an inhabited island off Puerto Rico, and during this month it's going to be activated, and we're looking here at all the usual stuff operating between 160 and 6 meters on CW, SSB and FT8, and they're also looking to set up a live stream on Club Log as well. So again, this is the 14th most wanted island entry on the DXCC list, so certainly one to listen out for. Right, now we're going to head over to our features episode, which is new Radio Shack additions. As always, hope you enjoy.
And now for this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast.
Hi guys, for this feature I called it Ham Editions for 2026. Now, that's probably a fair statement in all honesty. I managed to pick up a few items over the Christmas period that I think are going to make my life a lot easier in 2026. One or two, at least one of the items I'm sure most of you won't even know about, but it caught me on the hop in December 25. Okay, first item I managed to get hold of, and this is what it's advertised at: an adjustable PCB rotary clamp holder for printed circuit boards, soldering, desoldering, cleaning, and helping hands. What a mouthful. Well, I've had a device for holding PCBs for quite a while, but mine is quite a large one. So when you want to do tiddly little printed circuit boards, it's a bit cumbersome and unwieldy. It's not very friendly to use either. So when I spotted this one, I thought, I don't know what, let's bite the bullet. I build things on printed circuit boards and I experiment and do all sorts of bits and pieces alongside this hobby. So I thought, let's go for it. So anyway, you can adjust it. It's got various clamp sizes and slots. It's sprung loaded. So you can just pull it back, slide your PCB in, and then the spring will lock it into place once you've set the size. Great. It's just really does seem high quality. In fact, it impressed me when it arrived. It was better quality than I thought it'd be. And it's got some nice rubber feet on the bottom, which means you're not going to scrape the desk or the table when you're working on it. Along with the fact that this item is available on UK stock. So the stock of them in the UK, you haven't got to come from China. Where I ordered mine from, I ordered it one day and it arrived the next. So what a great little device. I've used it a couple of times. Really, really pleased with it. Right, moving on to my next item. I've mentioned a number of times I got bought a QRP Labs QMX Plus for my birthday. Love the little radio to bits. But I decided that I really ought to have an ATU to go with it. So if I take it out, I've got an ATU to go with it as well, rather than digging through some of my other boxes. And I had a look on the internet, no problems at all, and came across one, and it's marked up as QRP Z-Match Manual Antenna Tuner, 5 watts, 3 to 28 megahertz ham tuner. So that's what it's labelled as on the internet. Now, it's a lovely little box because it actually looks the part of it's built to go with the QMX because it uses a very, very similar case. And, okay, it's a low power device for 5 watts, but then a number of us do QRP, and it's a great little device. It came with its own little manual, but there's not a lot to the manual. You don't have to worry about it. Effectively, you switch it into tune mode, you send a signal, and you tune it so that the LED on the front panel goes out. And once the LED on the front panel's gone out, your SWR is okay for your radio. So you've matched it to your radio. Doesn't necessarily mean your antenna's okay, but you've matched your tuner to your radio so that the tuner will take the punishment if need be. And as I say, works very, very well. Because it's a Z-Match, there's a switch on the back which says low or high, which is for low impedance or high impedance. So if you've got an antenna that should be 50 ohms or around the 50 ohms, that's great. You put it on low. If you've got an antenna that's, say, 200, 300, 400 ohms, then you switch it to high on the back and you do the same thing tuning. Great little device. Small enough to go in your pocket, not mega big and heavy to take out with you. As I say, it works according to the instructions between 3 megs and 28 megs, so that's 80 meters and above. So you should be happy with that, and I certainly am. Cost of it, well, wasn't that expensive. It was about £25, the one I bought. You can get it from some of the Chinese outlets a little bit cheaper as a kit. And I'll be honest with you, at the time, I thought I was buying the kit. But in fairness, it came pre-made. And in fairness, for the little bit you'd save buying it as a kit, it seemed hardly worth it. I know I enjoy building kits, so I would have probably still gone the kit route, but it is available as a kit as well. And I say, pay around about £25 for it. You shouldn't pay more than that. Next item, this was a little bit more expensive, but great fun. It's 120 watt SWR digital power and standing wave meter from 1.8 megs to 54 megs. So it covers the whole of the HF bands and it covers up to 6 meters, which is nice. It works on AM, FM and single sideband modes and supports power adjustment for those as well. Now, it has a high SWR alarm, which you can set. And in fairness, once it's switched on, there's very little you can do. It comes with 3 buttons on the front. The right-hand button is marked red, and that will change the different displays. So you can have multiple different displays on the screen, and you change what you want to see. So you can have everything of showing, but the characters are quite small, or you can have a subset of those characters what you're particularly looking at. Now, if you push the green button, it switches it from English to Chinese, okay, and the yellow button allows you to switch on or off the alarm, so you can have a buzzer alarm if it goes out of spec to stop you from damaging it, which is a good little item. Charges off of USB-C. It has an internal battery and charges USB-C. When you're in transmit mode, the green LED lights up above the green button. It also puts itself to sleep after about a minute, or you can set how long you want it to put itself to sleep. So if you're using this in the field, then you're not going to run out of battery, because it will shut itself down when you're not using it, which is a great little device. Now, a quick look at the spec on this. As I said, it operates 1.8 megs and 54 megs. It'll go up to 200 watts SSB with a buzzer if you go over it. It's only got a baby little display on it, so you might need your glasses high. Weight is 190 grams, so it's light enough to fit in your pocket. And for those of you who go and do hilltopping with SOTA and things like that, it's not a heavy device to carry with you. Small, lightweight, great little device. As I say, I was perfectly happy. As I say, it measures between 0.5 of a watt and 120 watts normally, but up to 200 watts SSB. Okay, so the last device I ordered and got came out of the fact that I was trying to fix something for my daughter-in-law in Ireland. So when I was over the other day, I was talking to Sandra, and she had a Bose speaker. Now, I didn't bring it back with me, but it's a little USB Bose speaker. And I went to repair it for her. The battery's obviously died. She'd left it switched off for a long period of time. And when these lithium-ion batteries run right down below a certain level, they often don't hold a full charge or won't take a charge. So I thought, well, that's obviously what it is. Let's have a look. Well, Colin came over a couple of weeks ago, over Christmas. So he brought it over, and what a nightmare device this little Bose speaker is. First off, they've glued the screw covers in. So you have, you put your screws in the back, and then you put a cover over the screw to make the case look nice. They glued them in, so you couldn't get them out. So I had to drill them out, which, once again, as I said to my daughter-in-law, if I've got to drill them out, I can't replace those, but I'll have to drill it out. Once I drilled it out, I went to take it apart, and I've got various security screwdrivers. And I found that this had got strange security screws. So really trying to stop you getting in. Now, I ended up ordering 8-piece 5-point torque screwdriver set. And it came in various sizes. I needed the torque 15 to undo this device. So, a normal torque drive, if you look at it, they are hexagon shaped. They've got 6 points, and you want the one with the hole in the middle, because then you can undo the security ones as well as the normal ones. This was a 5-point design. So it was a 5-point torque with a hole in, and in the middle, and the 6-point ones won't fit. So I eventually ordered a set of these, and I wasn't even aware they existed. Anyway, I got it apart eventually. Horrible little thing to get apart. And yeah, it probably wants a new battery. I need to get confirmation whether they want us to do it. But the battery isn't just a battery. The battery has electronic circuitry within it. So there's 4 wires that come out of this battery pack thing. And we'll see what we can do if my daughter-in-law wants me to fix it. But just to let you know, there are such things as 5-point talks. When I showed the guys up the club, none of them had ever seen them. And I must admit, neither had I. I've got various security bits for getting things apart, but I'd never come across these. So just a few little items that, I'm going to find that are really good for me. I'm looking forward to using the PCB clamp more often because I want to do a bit more repairing. These little torque drivers means that there are a whole load of things I can get into now that I wouldn't have been able to. So that's a big tick in the box for me. The ATU works great with the QRMX, but bear in mind it's only 5 watts. And the last thing is that little power meter. Lovely little device that I've also used with my QMX and works very, very well. So, I hope this was of interest.
Well, everybody, I really hope you enjoyed our feature this episode. As always, some ideas of some good gadgets and toys that you might be able to furnish your shack with to continue your enjoyment of radio and electronics in general. And good to hear, Dad, that you're getting lots of nice toys and gadgets to play with, and you're certainly bonding with those new bits of equipment.
Yeah, it's interesting, Colin. In fairness, I'd got a couple of items which I thought people would be interested in, and they fit a need. And there's one at the end, the 5-star torque rather than the 6-star torque, is something I didn't know about. So maybe a number of other hams, if they get into that problem, know that there is such a thing out there and you can get the security bits for it. But yeah, I had great fun over Christmas.
Well, that's perfect. That's what we like to hear. Got to keep you out of trouble, as they say. Got to keep you out of trouble. Now, talking about keeping you out of trouble, we got some feedback from our last feature in our last episode where we were talking about the dangers of AI to amateur radio. And we start off with Mark M1 Mike Oscar, who says jokingly he thought FT8 was going to kill ham radio, and a big smiley laughy face for you. And also we got feedback from supporter Walt Washburn, and he says, Martin, your discussion around AI impact on the hobby, he's not so worried. Yes, changes and evolution is happening. There will be good as well as bad. However, as always has been, did the hobby fold as a result of powerful DSP? No. Did contesting rule that 4-element beams are an unfair advantage? No. AICW decoding and transmission to some is a little different than RTTY or Olivia. I'm a CW operator and get intrinsic satisfaction for using CW as a learned skill. As to contests, the sponsors have always adjusted the rules as technology evolves and will do so for AI. I don't rue the application as technological advance. I'm glad we're not still trying to use spark gap transistors. Love the podcast and enjoy your commentary. That's from Walt KT0 Delta. So as I say, I think the best thing is that obviously it's an engaging thought that we threw out there, and probably as Walt says though is that it's about understanding and adapting and learning, as well as, I suppose, understanding the potential pitfalls of AI as well, Dad.
I think the thing is, Colin, that feature was predominantly made to make people think. And I've been thinking about this, and I know you have. And in fairness, the manufacturers didn't want to speak to us about this, which was quite interesting. And as I said in the feature, only one of the manufacturers, one of the staff of one of the manufacturers was prepared to talk to me about this, and he had to do it as him and not part of the company he worked for. there are changes ahead. Some of them will be good, some of them will be bad. But we need to sort of be aware of these things so that they don't just run up and bite us. And we find in a few years' time that things have gone awry because we haven't been paying attention. So I'm not a Luddite, and yeah, Walt makes some very good points. I can't argue with him on it, in fairness. He's thought it through. There will be good points and bad points on all things in this hobby, and AI will improve some things. It may destroy others. We have to see.
I think the thing is, I think it's a general discussion on AI as well. The more and more I've thought about it over the last couple of weeks is that so many people aren't ready for it, as in their full understanding, embracing of it. But it's such a big news thing because of the value of tech stocks in AI, and it's a big buzzword that people are using, etc. And I think it can be daunting and frustrating at the same time. It's like, how do I embrace this? How do I use it, etc. And I do think, as I say, as we maybe understand it more, then it will be less worrisome. And I do think maybe some of the concerns we had from manufacturers when we tried to talk about it a little while ago is they just didn't get it and understand it, or how the impact is. So it was better to have no opinion rather than to put something on record and the fear of being wrong. But the honest truth answer is like with all this technology, and going back to what Walt says as well, you've got to have an opinion and understanding of new stuff as it comes down the path. And that's what we're going to need to probably embrace very soon, is an opinion on how we can use it, or if we're going to use it. And I think that's probably the big takeaway from a lot of this stuff. So yeah, look, we'll keep an eye on it. And as I say, I think the biggie is, and this is what I've been saying in the IT sector as well, is as we find an application and use for it, we've got to share that information and say, look, I found doing this is a big benefit, and go from there. And I mean, my starting point of it, I was trying to configure a radio a couple of weeks ago, and I must admit, rather than trawling through websites and trying to find the answer to what I was trying to configure, AI seemed to give me the instructions in a lot more of a layman term that was a lot actually easier to follow than some of the technical stuff I was finding on the web. So maybe that's the starting point of some of its benefit, is to demystify some of the technical stuff for maybe less able technical people in the hobby.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, Colin, but we'll see how it goes.
We will do. Right, well, we need to thank Chris, Mike 0 Tango Charlie Hotel, Frank Kilo 4 Foxtrot Mike Hotel, Leslie Golf 0 Charlie India Bravo for joining the News Roundtable. Thanks a lot, guys, for joining us down the News Roundtable. We, of course, would like to thank our monthly and end subscription donors who very kindly, help us pay our way and keep your show advert-free. If you found value from today's show, please do consider setting up a subscription or a one-off donation to help us out. And you can do that by visiting our very simple webpage, ICQPodcast.com/donate. So we really would appreciate people doing that from there. First chance for all of us, obviously, to think about our hobby and goals for 2026, and I really hope you're going to have a fantastic year with the hobby, and do some fantastic operations, maybe treat yourself to some new kit. So hopefully those New Year's resolutions are working out nicely for you. And the last thing for us to do, obviously, is to continue our tradition of finding Mrs. B a nice treat and making her a cup of tea as we bid goodbye to episode 474.
We certainly will, Colin. And so I'm just off to the kitchen in a second to make the tea. And we'll find Mrs. B something nice so she can enjoy it with her cup of tea. So, yeah, all great. First one of 2026. But I'll say 73 to you and our listeners, and we'll catch you again soon.
We'll do. 73's all. Bye-bye.